Hello and welcome to Lord of the Board. My name is Sam Smith, and today we are going to be looking at a game called Tapestry. This is a game that packs so much inside. It also has such a small rulebook, only 4 pages long, but the game itself has so much strategy. It's one of those games that by playing it more and more, you are going to start really understanding the game in a different manner. And so really, if I was just to tell you one strategy in the game, I would tell you go out and play Tapestry a dozen times. But because I have played it a dozen times, I think that there are definitely some strategies and some tips that I can give you to really improve your first couple games. But before we dive into the strategies and tips, first, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. And if you really did like the video and find it helpful in the end, please leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel and it helps these smaller videos that come from my channel to be seen. So thank you so much for being here. Let's go ahead right into my first tip. I find that in a game of Tapestry, a lot of people have struggles with the Tapestry cards themselves. Now, these are the cards that you are going to be using to basically place and show the main point of the era that you are going into. These cards will either give you a bonus that entire era, or they will be a win played action, which will be very situational, but could possibly give you a huge benefit. So they come in these couple forms. But a lot of people's critiques of the game have been that they didn't start out with a good Tapestry card, and that randomness ruined their game. Here's what I gotta say about that. When you get your initial Tapestry card, I have never intended that to be the only Tapestry card that I acquire. If I don't like that Tapestry card, I will go out and find more. These cards you can get down pretty much every track, but if you're looking for a specific track to get a lot of different options, you're gonna wanna go down the military track because you are gonna have more options to find Tapestry cards down that track. So if you don't like the first Tapestry card you get, you've got to get more. The science track has 2 available to gain just from the track alone. Technology has 1 guaranteed, but you could also find some additional ones in technology cards, but it's not a very high chance that you will. Then we've got the exploration track, which has 2 that are available as bonuses inside of it, and you can also gain them while exploring, but it is very unlikely. But military by far is the best if you're trying to cycle through Tapestry cards because you can guaranteed gain 3, and they even give you bonuses to discard them in order to get a lot of victory points at the end. However, I do have a specific strategy that you can use, and it's a way to usually set up yourself for success to grab some early Tapestry cards. I like to take my first advance up the science track. Then if I roll and I hope that I don't get a science side, I can go up for free on another track without gaining the benefit. But that puts me 1 advancement away on the science track and that other track from getting a Tapestry card. Pro tip right there. And another thing to be looking out for is the nail and the printing press technology cards. If you see those available in your options for tech cards, maybe you should go up the tech track this game because you'll be able to get up to 2 or 3 Tapestry card options in your first era just by going up the tech track alone. But in addition to that, we also want to look at the fact that Tapestry cards, though they are really, really powerful, Don't make them the focus of your entire strategy. Just because you get a couple good Tapestry cards does not mean that you're going to win the game, and just because you have a handful of duds does not necessarily mean you're going to be losing the game either. And my next tip and strategy is all about really income buildings. Now, these tiny guys are so important to Tapestry. Throughout the game, you're going to be gaining resources, and a lot of the times, gaining resources is really what means that you can extend your era. My advice, though, is that in every single era and at every opportunity that you really can afford to, always try to get these little income buildings. Usually you can find them as bonuses on some of the tracks. Sometimes you can just get them as a benefit by just moving up there. Sometimes you have an option as to whether to take one action or gain one of these income buildings. And for the most part, gaining these income buildings early on is going to be so much more beneficial because that's going to increase your income for that particular resource type for the rest of the game at every upcoming income phase. These are super important, and a lot of the times you'll see those crazy scores that players get in this game because they were able to optimize how many income buildings they got in that first era. Now, just as a generalization, the military and exploration tracks technically provide an easier income of resources early in the game that you could use to build these per se. But you also want to be looking at the technology track. If you see cards like paper, ammonia, anesthesia, or concrete, all of these can actually provide you with an income building on your first upgrade. So let's say you're not going for tech, but you see one of those cards in the lineup. Just pay the one resource to invent one of those cards, and that way you get an extra resource on your first income. And always keep a side note, if you are gaining a ton of those income buildings and doing really well with your capital city mat, then maybe you should start focusing a little bit more on the science track in order to get more home city bonuses at the end of the game, especially if playing civilizations like the entertainers or maybe the architects. A really important tip and strategy that I like to tell everyone on their first game is that there's going to be multiple races going on. There's mostly about 5 races going on at any given time during a typical game of Tapestry. You've got 1 race on each of the 4 tracks. That's going to be your first 4. And then your last one is going to be that race to the middle for those end of game scoring bonuses. Now, because each track has that benefit of when you get there, you can get those landmarks at the end of each tier. One of the things that you want to take into consideration in this game is to not race someone that you know you're going to be losing to. So if you're neck and neck with someone, but they're going to be getting that last spot, maybe try going up a different track just to change it up. If you realize that you're not going to be able to beat somebody at a specific race, then try doing something different with your turn that might be a more optimal way to spend your turn than failing a race that you were never going to win anyways. And this is a really important concept in Tapestry where if you're trying to go for a landmark and there's just no way that you're going to be able to reach it before an opponent, try to focus on something different, maybe a different landmark, or maybe go on that track that you haven't explored this game. But remember that there is multiple places in the end of game scoring, so even if a player makes it there first, you can always get there second. So keep in mind that that one you definitely want to pursue even if you don't think that you're going to be making it first. Now, another trap that I see a lot of players fall into is that once they have chosen their civilization mat, they tend to just go for one strategy during the game. And this is, in a way, a good idea, but it is at the end of the game going to eventually ruin you as opposed to benefit you. So let's say you get the militants, for example. A lot of players would assume that they were just going to be going down that military track. But really, Tapestry is a game about mixing the tracks, so definitely don't just only think about one track just because you're going for the militants. You could be the militants with a heavy focus on military and technology, or heavy focus on military and exploration, or maybe a mixture of three with a preference on military. Or if you get the alchemists, that doesn't mean that you have to go down only the science track. You can kind of mix it up maybe with science and technology or science and military. There's so many different ways that you can go. And really, I would say that the core of this game is finding those combinations between the tracks. There is so many different synergies, and it makes for a very interesting game every time. So just because you think that maybe you're supposed to be going down one or two paths, try to be a little bit more loose with it. As you're going up these tracks, look at every single opportunity and make sure you're making the right choice by advancing up that particular track this turn. Or would it benefit you to try that track that you haven't tried once this game yet? Now, as you may know, there is two ways to really deal with the grid-based system of your capital city mat. And as much as it is beautiful and awesome to have and fun to put together, it can be very, very stressful during the game itself. One of the things that I like to do is I like to focus on getting the extra resources, but sometimes once in a while when I find that I'm getting a lot of landmarks, I'll go for those endgame scoring bonuses. Because really there is two ways to approach this mat. On one end, you want to fill up these districts because then you get an extra resource when it's completely full. But on the other end, if you get rows and columns, you're going to be getting extra victory points at the beginning of each income for every single one that you've completed. So it almost makes you want to focus on both, but it's very, very difficult to do. So one of the things that I like to do as a strategy tip is I try to fill in the boxes in a row or in a vertical form. And that way, as you're filling them up, you're also getting rows or columns and the bonus resources. Ha! Gotcha. So there is a bonus tip this time, but I didn't even warn you at the beginning. This is a secret special bonus tip that only the viewers that got to this point will receive. And my bonus tip is a couple of complementary tracks that I feel really synergize well together. I've got exploration and military. You could do military and technology. You could do technology and science and military. I found that all of these can lead to amazingly cool synergies and come up with some really cool combos, but I'll let you discover those on your own as you play the game. And that is it for my strategy tips for beginners when playing Tapestry. I really hope that this video helped. I hope that it provided you with some guidance in your next game of Tapestry. This is a game that I absolutely love, and if you want to talk about it, definitely leave a comment down below and I will respond and we can just have a conversation about any of the questions you might have had, or maybe any questions you have about this game in particular. I'm definitely down to chat with you about it. But before you go, please go ahead and like and subscribe if this provided value to you. If you haven't clicked the bell notification, go ahead and do that. And I am also now on Twitch, Instagram, and I'm also on Twitter. So if you need a question or want a way to contact me, any of those ways would work. I have links down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. And with that, let's go ahead and drop the beat.